It takes forever. Hello, everyone, and good morning. Welcome to This Week in Hospitality Digital Marketing, which is in the sign you can't see behind me. Show number 93 with my wonderful co-host, Mr. Edward St. Ange from Flip2. I got to look over this when my camera's not working. Mr. Ed, good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning. I'm good. How are you?
Doing well. Actually, I had some fun with these articles of the potential topic stuff. I really wanted to dive into this one article from UC Davis. I'm just giving this prelude to everybody that's going to be knowing that we're going to be trying to hit this about prescriptive analytics. It's a term that is not well understood, and how it was broken down in the article was kind of fun. It was a very chewy article, and I felt bad. Normally, we share our topics early in the week so that we can get prepped for them in a certain level, which is, Anyway, this one is a very thoughtful article, and it's a little chewy to go through, but it's really neat. But there's that one, and then I want to talk about Google's offline tracking, and I want to talk a little bit about some DAT updates with Facebook. Mr.
Tim Peter!
Tim Peter! Oh,
you're muted still, sir.
I thought I clicked the button. I just...
And Mr. Robert Cole.
Robert Cole.
Entourage. Mr. Tim Peter with Tim Peter and Associates, and Mr. Robert Cole from Rock Cheetah.
Hey, the sign
morning.
Back.
The what?
Sign's back.
Sign is
Oh,
back.
yeah.
I
Just commented about. I was like, "Oh yeah, I should put that sign out again." I mean, geez, it's not like I've got a great backdrop here or something. You know?
Notice his strategic positioning of his body. It looks like the Tim Peter and Associates and Rock Cheetah logos have been removed from the sign.
It's gone. Okay. Yeah.
There goes your 200.
But the last time I had to fit it in a suitcase, guess what got lost?
Yep.
Yep.
Wow.
I got the logos in the closet right behind me, but
glass.
Wow. Yeah. I was mentioning the fact that I had just recently sent out the topics. And Holly's with us, or will be with us in spirit, but she's still with bronchitis.
This way you. I was going to say this way you can't see that it's brown liquor.
Yeah.
It's
so you were saying about Holly, Lauren.
Oh yes, no, she was asking if the Motley Crew was going to join together today, and whether she had to be online. She's still suffering a little coughing from the bronchitis.
Oh no!
So
sorry to hear.
I know, it's like, man, those things can knock you down, and she probably isn't sharing half of the pain that it's been for these past 3 weeks. But.
Just a personal opinion. Just a personal opinion. I think Holly coughing is better than the sum of us combined, but still.
Fair enough.
Actually, kind of
it's at least more accurate.
What was that?
I said it's at least more accurate than the four of us.
That's true.
combined.
Yeah, exactly.
Very true. Very true.
That is not fake news.
Anyway, I apologize. I sent over the suggested topics relatively late. There was a very chewy article on prescriptive analytics that UC Davis went over and popped out. The reason why I threw it in there, one, was it was shared on the Revenue Management Board's call yesterday as well. I had already grabbed it, and they decided to spend their point of view discussing it. And it was very interesting to hear their feedbacks about it. And there was actually some great insights. I was pretty impressed. Not that it's smart people on the call. It may sound like that they weren't very good, but no, they gave some great insights to how they're seeing the relevance of the prescriptive analytics drive and what the real distinctions are between what people think analytics are today versus what they're going to become in the future. So I was going to just kind of throw that on the table first, if you guys wanted to kind of chew at it, or
please throw it on the table.
Something cotton candy.
Well, dive into
it.
So the only thing that I will say about it is, and I full disclosure, I've not read the article in detail, so I might be missing some of the nuance and the like. What I think is interesting about analytics, and what I find most fascinating about where we're going with analytics as we go forward, is increasingly a lot of the hard data science is something you're going to be able to buy as a service. With the rise of AI, as AI becomes more prevalent, most hotels are not going to have data scientists on staff, and I would argue they probably shouldn't, right? So
because they're not going to have the ability to attract the best data scientists. They'll get a data scientist.
Right. So I think it's something that, you definitely want to be conscious of what's available out there as a tools perspective. You definitely want to be conscious of what's available to you as a service perspective. But I think it's more a question of push on vendors to ensure they're providing you these kinds of outputs without worrying so much about how do we get there.
More importantly, push on vendors to provide these kind of outputs cross platforms.
Yeah.
So you don't want this service in a silo.
Right.
This service needs to be looking across, and it's actually a worthwhile thing. You may want to subscribe to a couple versions of cross services. Yep. So that way you have a good sampling of different points of view, because all too often in this industry, vendors tend to build very narrowly to what they're trying to sell you, rather than taking in your entire business and thinking through the entire guest cycle. So, I agree. I don't think this is something hotels should try to embark on themselves. They should push their vendors to do it, and they should push their vendors to do it outside of their own vertical if they're going to go with it. Unless, of course, it's like a Duetto or an Ideas or someone like that who's already, full journey.
Right. The other thing I would add to it, just one last point about it, is, that if it's the OTAs are the only ones providing it, that's a problem. Right, because the OTAs are making investments in this area, and they're making investments already. And I would include, alternative accommodations providers, the Airbnbs and the like. That's troubling if they're the only ones doing it. So I think it's more, what human beings can do that AI cannot do is ask the right questions. Right. So if you focus on what are the needs of your guest, and you focus on how can I measure the effectiveness of my activities? How can I measure the effectiveness of what we're doing? How can I measure the satisfaction of guests? What data exists to support our efforts in various areas? And how can you, vendor A, vendor B, vendor C, et cetera, as Ed says quite rightly, across platforms, help me understand the effectiveness of that? Then I think that's really valuable, because it will allow you to provide a better service to your guests and allow you to actually compete more effectively against, the OTAs and the alternative accommodations providers and everybody else. But
so Flip2's wading into these waters.
Speaking of vendors who might be cross-platform, and by the way, speaking of vendors who might be cross-platform, Stuart Butler, ladies and gentlemen. Hello, Stuart.
So we've been quietly experimenting with architecture around this part of the world to just see what we can learn because of our footprint, and because we are across many different aspects of the guest journey. So we're going to, and wade into it, I think is a good way to put it. So we're just going to start by exposing some insights on things that we think a hotel could do something about. But we actually, as part of our, bigger picture strategy, we'll be moving towards a revenue management style approach to this. Because I actually think if you nail your ability to understand all the different efforts you use to drive your direct channel, and you bolt that up to a revenue management system so you can actually understand all the other channels, that actually means in real time you could make decisions on dates based on different demand algorithms to actually redistribute your entire channel strategy. So, I mean, I kind of look at it as the Shangri-La. Who knows if we'll ever get there, but the Shangri-La is, hey, Sandusky, Ohio is not peaking in demand for you, but is converting at a much higher rate than other areas. You can just go look where are you distributed? Where are you at inventory wise? What is your need? And on the fly, do an understanding of what would it cost to capture this direct versus what would it cost to get it through your existing other channels and actually re-optimize the whole strategy.
Right. By the way, Stuart, just so you're conscious of what, I think you can probably pick it up from context, but we're talking about prescriptive analytics, predictive analytics, big data, the effect of AI on that as we go forward, et cetera.
AI makes big data little.
Well, exactly. Nice line. That's spectacular.
That is good.
Well, and it's an important, it's a really, really important point. No, I'll have to credit you, but I'm using that now because that is exactly the kind of thing
I'm using it, but I'm not crediting him.
Of course.
Well, no,
I came up with it while I was drinking my happy hour cocktail. I don't know where anybody else is getting their stories from.
I got to tell you a funny story. I mean, just to give you a sense, right? So I have this in front of me at the moment. IDC has said that, the world's data doubles approximately every 18 months, right?
Yeah.
But I saw this in real world terms this week. And I think I can talk about this, so I'm going to.
Well, and if you get taken out, like if all of a sudden we just hear,
right,
we know what happened.
Exactly.
Said something you shouldn't have.
But I saw a coatings manufacturer that makes coatings and sealants and things along those lines, who is testing. They have been approached by people who make very, very, very small embedded sensors. And when I say small, I mean like just barely above the microscopic level.
Wow.
And these sensors, and these are incredibly basic sensors. I want to be really, really clear. But what they want to do is they want to coat the inside of pipelines. And the sensor will measure things like changes in the makeup of the chemical composition of the things in the pipeline.
Wow.
So if it senses, for instance, a change in the amount of oxygen, then maybe there's a leak.
Wow.
So
Internet of Things, things.
No, the Internet of Paint. Right?
That's
I mean,
well, yeah. Exactly.
I mean, we are the amount of data we'll be talking about. Now, I mean, these are incredibly simple sensors. They are,
they got to put these sensors in toothpaste.
Right.
It'd be amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, these are in testing and things along those lines. This is not a commercial product today, and maybe it won't work. But the fact that they're investing time and energy and resources into figuring out how to make it work, I once heard a physicist give a lecture, and he said, when scientists say it's theoretically possible, what they're saying is it's possible. Right? Like theoretically possible means it's possible. It just means we haven't quite figured out how to get there yet. That's just an engineering.
We haven't gotten the funding yet. We maybe have to pass some regulations.
Right, exactly.
Don't quite have a business case for it yet.
Right. We don't know how to make money at it. That's a big one. Yeah. That's a really big one.
Aren't sure of any sort of collateral damage, but we're ready.
Right, exactly. But the point being that the volumes of data that we're talking about is going to require AI to do as Ed just said.
Well, and the thing that AI can do with volumes of data that you just can't do with humans is it can spot trends that you wouldn't understand.
Right.
And that is where you get into magical stuff. I'm not talking, all the things people think about tracking today. I'm talking about just micro trends inside of micro trends that actually, in a big enough sampling, tell you something that you just couldn't know otherwise.
Well, I can give you a real world example of this as well. I know I've mentioned before that I'm working on an AI enabled project, and that's, full disclosure. So when I talk about holding your vendors accountable, I have some skin in this game. But the guy who is one of our lead folks on this, who's wicked smart, has been doing this stuff for 15 years. Right. I mean, just to give a sense of how far we've come and what a moment we're in right now. But they built a very, very simple tool that was sophisticated for its time, 5-10 years ago, where it was actually parsing news stories. And one of the problems that they found with the travel vertical was that it could not distinguish initially. They couldn't distinguish initially between things that were targeted at consumers and things that were targeted at business professionals, travel industry professionals. Now, a human being could read them and see it easily, but they couldn't figure out how to program an algorithm to actually determine which was which. And the old joke about AI is, if you know how it works, it's not AI, right? Because AI figures it out for itself. Yeah. And what the machine learned to do, and this gets right to your point, Ed, was it spotted the use of words like "you." Right? If it said, you can do this, you should do this, you should book here, you should do whatever, it was almost always, it could predict with a high level of confidence that it was a consumer-facing piece. Mm-hmm. And if it didn't, then it was something that was really travel trade. But no person taught the machine that. The machine read through the stuff and went, these things that have the word you are the ones you keep flagging. You, the humans, keep flagging as being travel trade. Consumer facing. And the ones that you don't, you keep flagging as travel trade. So I bet there's something there that no person spotted. The machine figured it out for itself. And that's exactly what you're talking about. Simple to go back example, but it's a real world example that, is kind of interesting.
To go back to, like I said, this topic was brought up with the Revenue Management Board in HSMAI's call yesterday. And Ed, you would love this because they used a Star Wars analogy, which was awesome. And it's like when R2-D2 was flying the X-Wing, it gave Luke the opportunity to do all the stuff that only he could do, but it doesn't mean that Luke knew what R2-D2 was doing on handling all the mundane stuff. And so the real trick to this, where the way it was defined was there's the descriptive analytics, which is the look at and reveal data, okay? There's the predictive, which is look at the data and extract what the potentials are from it. And then there is the prescriptive, which is what the machine, the AI, the mechanical is trying to tell you should be done about it.
Or just
or just does it.
Or just does. And that's where the error comes in. It's not an either or replacement. The discussion really lended itself that this isn't to replace humans from doing it, as it is to augment what humans are doing. You made a great statement, seriously, about the AI makes big data little. It's to handle all the stuff that humanly is not possible, but if understood by a human is usable.
Yep.
And so with it goes back to the Star Wars thing. R2-D2 is handling all the whatever makes the X-Wing fly, but that allows Luke to use the Force and figure out how to shoot the little things down the hole. And
R2-D2, beyond that, also was distracting us from how bad of an actor Mark Hamill was.
Okay, we're not going to get there.
I take offense to that.
He was young. He was a dorm. Come on.
So anyway, the idea of it
that was acting. He's really a fine actor, and he was acting that way, which was the genius.
That's right.
Okay. Try to defend it, but it's not working, even in the later episodes. All right. So with that in mind, approaching machine language, as they kept referring to it, AI, is that if it's being built to help better define usability, it'll always have a place. If it's built to replace usability, it will create a threshold issue of will the chess master really get beaten by the machine eventually? Will a good revenue manager, will a good marketer truly not be as good as the machine's learning capability and AI intelligence?
Yes. There's an example today.
Yeah. Well, Lucy's out there right now. It goes back.
Let's go even simpler. Go to the New York Stock Exchange today and tell me how different it is from 10 years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
They don't get paper anymore.
Seriously, you want to talk about a complicated gig.
Right.
Commodities traders, they're outclassed by algorithms constantly. Constantly. And so, but
that's the global financial crisis. When you start getting the caution is derivatives based on derivatives based on the algorithms. So fundamentally, the global financial crisis was caused by a professor at Penn State who had this very complicated, we securitize all these, debt instruments, and isn't this great? And nobody really tested for what happens when markets start going down with this. Everything looked great. The trends were good going up, and nobody did that. Now, again, you could say the AI could figure that out, right? but that's more of the reliance on the thing. So the key is you've got to, and I completely agree with everything that's been said, but the thing that the hoteliers can't outsource is their business.
Thank you.
Right?
Well, and that's actually what I was kind of wrapping this up to.
The technology to do this, technology to do this stuff, but you still have to have the framework of, wait, what are our objectives? What are we trying to do? And every once in a while, the machine may come up with decisions that might be really good for short-term immediate things and really screw your loyal guests or something.
That's actually bad. But that's actually a badly implemented AI at the outset. In all sincerity, it really is. It's something that hasn't thought through. There's a classic example of this. Wait, these are actually known more or less as something called howlers, right? When the AI gets something so wrong that any person can know is, obviously wrong, and the AI doesn't know enough to know that it's obviously wrong. The global financial crisis, anybody should have known was obviously wrong, but it was just set up badly. The real world scenario of this was when Watson competed in Jeopardy. And when Watson competed in Jeopardy, the final Jeopardy question was something about what American city, blah, 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 right? And what they had designed Watson to do was recognize that there were puns and there were plays on words and things like that throughout the regular rounds of Jeopardy. And so it answered Toronto. Now, you don't have to know what the right answer is as a human being to know that Toronto is the wrong answer to what American city, blah, 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 blah. But their rules didn't take into account the fact that they never do the play on words in the final Jeopardy question.
Right.
And but everybody pointed to it of, ha, look how stupid Watson is.
Yeah. But here's
that was just badly
weakness
implemented.
of AI is always going to be where it meets up with humans.
That's right.
Whether it's at the onset of how it was built, or if it's at the other side of it, which is how we interact with AI. Because let's look at Microsoft's voice AI, and when they set that free on Twitter, and within hours it was anti-Semitic and
racist.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the caution I was leading up to is making sure that
by the way, to be fair, you should never. The actual lesson we should take from that is never interact with Twitter.
Well,
in general.
Sorry, I'm kidding. Go ahead, Ed. Sorry.
But really thinking through how much of a faith blindly you're going to put into AI, because you're actually not putting your faith in the AI. You're putting your faith in the humans who had something to do with it, whether it be the architects of the original AI or the humans interacting with it. And where I more lead to is, sure, we're going to get to a point where AI is building AI, and that's the end of the world anyways. I mean, everyone's saying that. But the actual problem is going to be is if you are found out that obviously you're operating on AI, you're incredibly easy to engineer a hack for. Yes, it may not penetrate you, but it will screw up your business so bad, because there will be people who go, oh, wow, they've got AI running. Great. Let me game that. And
let's hack it.
And guess what? I'm willing to bet for a very long time AI is not going to be able to recognize when it's being scammed by someone. Because let's face it, people still have a hard time with that.
Right. Well, that's
and people build AI. So
that's exactly right. Yeah, AI is great for solving two things. Truly. I mean, this is a gross oversimplification, but where AI comes into play is when there is an obvious right answer, when the data validates this is true or this is false, and it's obvious. You can teach an AI to spot this is true or this is false. Or when there's, gross consensus amongst a large number of people. If most people said, yes, this is true, or yes, this is false, this is a good outcome, this is a bad outcome, you can teach an AI to do the same thing. Mm-hmm. When it's purely ambiguous, that's not a thing AI will ever be able to do. And Ed, you hit it exactly on the head, because most people can't either.
Right. People don't actually recognize why they make decisions or why they feel the way they feel.
Right.
That's why if you ever really want to put someone on their heels, just ask them why they're thinking that way.
Right.
And just watch their face.
Well, there was
as it washes over them.
There was a great example this past week of a I'm going to call it fake news. I'm just going to call it what it is. Somebody took a clearly slanted piece of journalism, clearly invalid thing, and they just showed it. It started getting shared by traders on Wall Street. And the market, and I read the article yesterday or the day before, and I really should know the answer to this because it's important, but the market either tanked or took off. It doesn't really matter. But literally, because people were passing this around, it was a rumor about what's going to happen with the presidency and all this other kind of stuff. Because nobody recognized that it was 3 weeks old. B, it had been clearly debunked prior, right? And clearly untrue. But people didn't recognize it, got so caught up in the moment that they just did whatever.
Yep.
Well, you can't expect the machine to do any better.
If you can socially engineer a hack of a human, which is the easiest thing in hacking, then it will be a long time before AI is resilient to that.
Right.
And again, to bring this full circle back,
but the problem is the downside. The downside of that, though, is when it's hacked, and nobody knows what's working inside that black box. And they don't know the signals and how the algorithm works, then it's a real problem to troubleshoot it and figure out what went wrong and how do you pull it out.
Well, you can't, right? Because again, no, really, you can't because there's nothing to troubleshoot. You just know it's wrong. Realistically, again, if you know how it works, it's not AI.
You know the output. Well, no, but okay, let's say if you're hacked, you know the output is wrong. You've got to go back and figure out which input is triggering that, right? But so the algorithm's overweighting something or something. So to figure out those complex signals and to go through, and especially if you get a decent hacker who goes, well, let's throw a few little red herrings here and there, which would seem obvious. Yeah, it's going to be very, very ugly.
No, I agree. But this is where I go back to, as a hotel, let's bring this back to, the audience and things along those lines. And let's make this a real world scenario. If you're a revenue manager and the AI suddenly tells you should set all your prices to 20% of what they were, right? Or you should set them to 500% of what you were. You need to be smart enough to say, you know what, that's probably not the right thing for the guest, or that's probably not the right thing for my business. I'm going to override it in this case. Could somebody game the system somewhere along the way where it's, shaving off a buck or two instead of raising it a buck or two?
Superman.
Right. Yeah. Right. Filtering the penny off. Yes. Could that happen? Sure. We're not there yet.
That's not what I call a mundane detail, Michael.
Yeah. Right. The lesson: don't drive the Ferrari to work the next day.
Yeah.
But the reality is,
First rule.
But here's
the thing. Here's how you can look
where
at
you have to, as a human being, make good decisions based on what it's telling you, and leave it to the folks who deal with that to say, we'll figure out why the inputs are getting screwed up.
But at the beginning, you don't know those things, right? So when you're building these,
but knowing what you don't know is what keeps you out of that trouble.
That's exactly right.
Exactly right. No, you do need to know. But every time,
if you want to really have example of all that, more people are screwed by believing that something that is false is true than they are by believing that they don't know the answer.
Yes, but what drives? Yes, absolutely. But what drives development cycles and startups and everything now, aside from Ed, who's building the perfect product in version 1, is minimum.
That's why we're
minimum
releasing it, as insight first.
But to get funding and to get released, it has to be like the minimum viable product. So it's not going to be this full featured. Everything that takes into consideration all these things. So those are the things, and you wind up with little interesting gaps.
We do have real life examples right now of AI being used in hospitality-ish businesses, like with Uber's price yielding strategies on demand cycles. And we have seen it blow back up in their face of overextended pricing in what they consider peak demand times, unfortunately, during crisis situations. Because that was not plugged into it, like you said, Tim, in the Final Jeopardy.
That was nobody. But that was nobody gaming the system, and that was nobody. And that was nobody making a business.
AI being as good as the developers.
Yeah.
Well, like
the system was working as designed. It was optimizing the revenue. Going, well, you didn't. If this is social,
but as Tim pointed out with Watson, it didn't plan the final question being not the same rules that it conditioned on the other ones. Same true with Uber. It didn't put in there, hey, when there's an emergency, don't do this. You know,
Yeah. But
really,
that's hard to predict.
Did put that in there?
No.
Well, do you think we should think about this? And they're like, you know what?
But that's an excellent point, though, because here's Uber. Even though they're an incredibly well-funded startup, should they go build something that's going to cost money and take time and make things more complicated that actually inhibits their revenue stream? There's a lot of pushback to do those in that version. Right?
Well,
so
this is why Ed said this a couple minutes ago, and we need to keep coming back to this, especially as hotel folks, right? Is this good for my guest or not? Or on the flip side, is this good for my business? Because Uber may very well be inhibiting their business when people say, well, when these guys surge, they suck. I'm not going to use them. And so they're missing out on all the revenue they would be getting if, in fact, people actually weren't getting bled dry during surge pricing, but instead of jacking up the price 500%, it increased the price 40%, right? Yeah. And that's the kind of question that a business person should be asking, to say, I get what the machine is telling me. Here's what I want, because that is better for the long-term growth of my business, better for my customer, better for people to say good things about me.
The easiest way to look at this for right now and for the foreseeable future. You use AI where it makes good business sense. And it's the same way, like I look at it as as someone who's run software development for my entire adult life. Same way we used Indian outsourcers. I didn't say psychologically adult.
That'd be like the last 18 months.
Physically adult. No, I mean, it's the same way we use Indian outsource. Listen, they are programmers by definition of programmers.
Right. Yep.
They will build exactly what you tell them to build.
Yep. Right. Absolutely.
And
if you tell them the wrong thing, you got a really good quality wrong thing.
Right. And so, but understanding that, it doesn't mean they're useless. It means you need to really be good around them, and you get a lot out of it by doing that. If you're not really good around them, you're going to end up in a really bad place. I look at AI the same way. AI right now is the same exact thing. If you're really good around AI, AI will just boost you.
Well, and again, I mean, I'm going to ask Stuart a question.
Mm-hmm. Let him talk.
Stuart on the spot.
I'm enjoying the conversation, but I have to talk.
Stuart hasn't jumped in. He has decided not to throw any sharp elbows here. But
he's just waiting to say you're all wrong.
Well, he is the only rocket scientist on this show.
Well, no, that's 2 degrees. My other one was computer science, where we did a lot of AI and machine learning too. So I do have some.
So the actual only person who's qualified to talk to by education.
Okay, so watch, but I'm not going to ask him a question about AI. Sure. You work with a lot of hotels, right?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
If there is one consistent thing that hotels that you work with who are successful have in common, what would that one thing be?
Man, I wish you'd asked me that before the show so I could really deeply think about it. But it's tough because I don't work with them so much on the operational side, so the answer I'm going to give might be different.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
Than you are expecting. I think the ones that are successful from my perspective are the ones that are willing to experiment, but with the guest in mind. They always put the guest at the front of their decision process.
And you answered the question exactly the way I thought you would, right? I think we all work with enough hotels that we know that the hotels that do well consistently are the ones who, whatever they do, however they do it, whatever process they do it, they're always focused on the needs of the guest first.
Okay.
And if they are, you're exactly right. I completely agree with that answer, by the way. I could not agree more.
I'd like to but okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, all I was going to say was, so anytime we talk about any of these tools, whether it's AI, whether it's whatever, right? The reality is, if it's not helping the guest experience, ultimately it's not going to help your business. Period.
Right.
Period.
Well,
just to put a cap to the end of this one, because I want to give
Wait, we didn't let Stuart chime in on this. That was what Tim was trying to do. Let's let Stuart.
Stuart have something to offer.
I do have some thoughts, and a lot of it's just reiterating what you guys are saying. I think reality is we're 20, 30 years away from AI being as powerful as people think it is today. You know, it's not there. It's still very limited in terms of the parameters that we give it. Like you were talking about, the human code, the rules that we set. And AI is not even close to being creative. It's not even close to being able to react to nuance with the stuff you've been illustrating, right? So I think whether it's a natural disaster creating a surge, one thing we know as humans is that nothing is going to go the way we think it's going to go, right? And
you'd like to think we know that,
right? So it's naive of us to think that we can program an AI today that is going to be able to handle whatever is going to come tomorrow, right? Because what's going to come tomorrow is inevitably going to be different than we perceive it. So we and this is coming from the VP of engineering at Google. Even they are saying we're 20 years away minimum from just the Google Homes and the Amazon Echoes of the world, which is very simple AI when you think about it. It's natural language processing and machine learning. We're 20, 30 years away from that being a conversation, an actual real conversation. So AI is, I think, misused a lot today, but the reality is we are stronger as marketers, as operators, as rate managers, if we leverage software, whether that's AI software or software in general, that can crunch data in a way that humans are not capable of en masse. If we leverage that tool, but have the human component in it to manage it and give the inputs and to discern whether the outputs from that tool are valuable or misleading, to give over full control of, say, the rates on Uber, I think to give that to a machine is foolish at this point in where AI is.
I agree.
Well, even if it's not AI, if it's just a straight algorithm,
sure, exactly,
Well, airlines still, were the birth of revenue management. They have not completely just given this to the machines. I mean, they still have people who are managing those city pairs, trying to figure out what the hell did Spirit or Frontier just do, and should we do this or that? Do they match? Are they above? Are they below? How do they?
It's not an either or; it's an and. Those same people that Stuart was predicting. Right. It's not replacing humans with machine. It's the probably eventual integration of both.
Yeah.
Towards something else, and it's not just we're going to flip the switch. Humans don't master, and they do.
Well, and maybe that's the best way to describe it.
But if we can bring this full circle, this goes back to what I just want to build on what Stuart said for 1 second. This goes back to what we said at the beginning, right? That if you're a hotelier, you don't need to worry about this. You need to worry about, are the vendors providing you tools that enable you to provide a better experience for your guests? And if they are, then you should use them. And if they're not, you should find better vendors, right? Fundamentally, to Stuart's point, it doesn't matter how they got there. It's, does this enable me to run my business more effectively and take a better care of my guests? No, I will fight that one. I will go down in flames on that one, because ultimately, I've been in this business. I have been in this business for 17 years, right? I've been in business but I've been in business generally for 20 years, more than 17, right? And consistently, the companies that win consistently, I'm not saying there aren't edge cases. I'm not saying there aren't people who win for short periods. I'm not saying there aren't people who get short-term bumps. That's a fad. That's not winning. The companies that win consistently are the ones who take care of their customers, who do experiment, who use technology appropriately to adapt to changing times to deliver a better experience to their customer consistently. Period. Full stop. And
Right.
I will go to my grave
believing
that's true.
And that wasn't what I was disagreeing. I think the point that you made about if you can find somebody who provides a tool, it doesn't really matter how they do it. You got to be careful how they do it, because all of a sudden you get into something where it's locked into their silo. It's proprietary. You can't move your data out.
That's entirely fair.
Welcome to the hospitality industry's property management system challenge.
No, entirely fair. I wouldn't dispute that.
To put a cap to the idea of it is, I've often described that there's two types of people in our industry: those who look for validation of their idea and ignore all else, and there are those who look for every reason why their idea is wrong and find validation in it.
Right.
And that's exactly in a microcosm how we're kind of looking at AI right now. Is if you're looking at it to validate what you want to do, it'll always be right as long as it agrees with you. And if it gives you an answer that you don't understand and you find every reason to find it wrong and it's still right, it's a tool to be used.
So we have a word for those people who do whatever they were going to do, regardless of what the data suggests to them. They're called politicians.
So to just kind of wrap up, like everything we talked about leads to something that people always look at me like I'm crazy when I say this. Autonomous driving.
Just for this one reason, Ed. I mean, if you're trying to nail it on one
thing, is so much further away than every company working on it will lead you to believe. And here's the simple reason why. When it's between the person who's in the car and someone else, and it's unavoidable, who dies? That decision.
I actually disagree on that one. First off, I want to make one clarification point. And Stuart, I know you know this, but this is more for the audience, right? When we talk about AI, there's really two different things we're talking about, right? Now I've completely blanked on a general AI, right? A generalized AI is the Star Trek computer. That's the thing that answers questions, can do anything at any time and all that. That is definitely a long way away. Narrow AI is focused on solving a specific problem, like what should the rate be, right? Mm-hmm. And that's something that's not a long way away. We don't know exactly how far away it is, but we're seeing elements of that right now. Google is using AI in search results today to some degree. How long will it be till they turn over the whole thing to the AI? I don't know, but it clearly is something they're already doing right now and probably isn't 20 years away, but it's trying to solve an exceedingly narrow problem. And those kinds of AIs, they're definitely a lot. The thing about self-driving cars specifically is it is a narrow problem in the artificial intelligence or machine learning sense. It's not a simple problem, but it is. Give me 1 second, Robert. Give me 1 second, then I'll shut up. I promise. It is. Well, for now, anyway.
Actually, Lauren's given me the power to take care of that.
I gave everybody the power except for Stuart. Stuart here. I'm sorry. I'm going to give you the power too. Dude.
Sorry,
so I didn't have the
Tim,
I'm good.
We can't hear you. Tim,
with much power comes much responsibility.
I think you're muted, Tim.
So
there it is.
So we kill. Automobiles kill about 1,000 people a day. Excuse me, about 100 people a day. My apologies. I got the order of magnitude wrong. About 36,000 people die every year in automobile accidents, right? About 100 people a day. At some point, self-driving cars will reduce that number enough. And I don't know if it's 10%, I don't know if it's 15%, I don't know if it's 50%. But at some time before too long, the numbers will become low enough that the insurance companies will force it. Period.
Yep.
It doesn't have to be
But
perfect.
Here's the thing.
It just has to be enough better that everybody says, you know what, we'd rather only 80 people died a day instead of 100 died a day.
Right.
But here's the challenge with the moral machine, Robert posted.
Yeah.
So the correct way to do it is allow you to choose when you get in the car what the ethics are, right? But here's the problem with that. Any of you ever do a will with someone where you have to tell people what you want to happen when you're sick and incapacitated and stuff?
Yes.
How hard was it for you to get that done?
Oh my God, it was a nightmare.
So could you imagine having to make that level of decision every time you stepped into a car? And again, this is the problem where AI mates up with humans. This is going to be the problem because if it's too simple of a solution of, just go by age or something like that. Here's the thing. You don't know. Are you a father of kids and they don't have a mom? Like, there's so much complexity to how that decision is made on who lives.
And on data you don't have.
And it's
data you don't have, right?
And all it's going to take. So I agree that at some point, insurance is going to try to step in and force autonomous driving until someone sues them.
No, because they get sued every day today.
No, but it'll be
that's a risk issue.
It'll be a type of lawsuit where it'll be argued that it's a basic human right to have a choice to control your own ability to live or die and make that decision. And then you get into a rights issue. Like, this is where, oversimplification by the companies working on the problem has everyone believing that it's inevitable. But when you actually look at the conversations that are going to come up, it will be inevitable and it will pop. And then it will get yanked back by a rights issue.
I hear what you're saying. I'm way more cynical than you are. I think the minute that a large industry with lots of lobbying power can save billions of dollars per year, they will. The way it might be done, it might not be handled as a rights issue. It might be that if you continue to self-drive, your insurance rates go up, and if you have a self-driving car, your insurance rates go down. And it will not, it will be a rights issue. You get to choose. Are you going to continue to drive and pay more for insurance, or are you going to let the car take over and you will pay less for insurance?
Well, and
I don't know how long that's going to take. I don't think that's going to happen next week. But that's not something that we're 30 years from.
I'm saying it's much further away than everyone working on it will lead you to believe.
I'm gonna put a stake in the ground. 10 years.
Which is much further away than everyone who's working on it will lead you to believe.
The first ones are going to be out theoretically in production in 2020. 2020 is about.
If you ask Elon Musk, he'll say 2018.
A lot of them.
Yeah. Say that one more time.
If you ask Elon Musk, he'll say 2018.
Yeah.
Well, actually, if you ask Elon Musk, he'll say 2016.
Right.
Hey,
we put it out.
But the interesting part is you look at things also. I mean, this does get into huge societal, ethical issues, because look at net neutrality now, right? Everybody has access to. Well, that's now. The internet service providers may be getting a little bit more benefit to say, here's the fast lane, here's the slow lane, watch out. So they're going to be are the insurance companies going to get some sort of revenue share from the advertising platforms that exist in these vehicles, which is kind of the driving force, because if you don't have to pay attention to drive the car, you can get served media and advertising, things like that. So,
right. So if you want to see what's really going to happen, it's already been predicted. It's accurate to date. Is a great movie called Idiocracy. And every year that goes by since that movie was released, that movie is scary accurate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So, by the way, I'm not going to go down a net neutrality path. I'm just going to post a link to something I've written about. I have incredibly passionate feelings about this. So feel free to read at your leisure. Yep. But I'll shut up.
All right, and I think we should probably go to a hotel.
Pick out of the hat next.
A hotel.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Since Stuart did join us, Stuart, did you read the article that Hebs put out about Google AMP pages?
There you go. I was hoping we go to that one or the Google one, but yes.
You know what? I did. And I was so excited about today's show being about Star Wars that I didn't get a chance to read any of the articles. But I have opinions about AMP, so if you want to summarize it.
Well, before we talk about opinions, I want to start with what's wrong with the attitude that they presented, which is they literally laid out, and Hebs are smart people. Hebs are smart people, and they do a lot of good things. But my gosh, when you're scared about a technology ruining your day, putting an article out that you didn't even attempt to hide the fact that you're just trying to get some percentage of the people who read it to just not even want to consider it, so that way you don't have to immediately disrupt like your business plan is just, it's hard. Yeah. Like, because a real agency, their angle on this should have been test and change. Not, avoid it because of this, and this. Like, as I'm reading their argument, I'm sitting there going, guys, like, I could instantly.
I didn't read it. So what was the headline? Was it a clickbaity?
Yeah, it was clickbaity. Like, should hotels ignore AMP pages or something like that?
Should hospitality embrace or ignore AMPs? Here, I'll put it up.
Right. And so their answer when you read the article is, yeah, you should ignore AMP pages.
Okay, I'm going to categorically state, and I very rarely make blanket statements.
Hold on. Is someone running a dot matrix printer?
Sounds
that
like
would
it.
be Tim.
It does sound. It's like
Sorry.
But anytime Google says that something's good, you should probably embrace it, at least test it, right? Because if they think it's good, they're going to somehow bake it into their algorithm.
Yes. Thank you.
Right? So there's an advantage. And again, I'll use the word I use every week, but there's always an arbitrage benefit of jumping in, right? So the folks that our clients that have embraced AMP, which is accelerated mobile pages, are seeing an increased level, a percentage of the market of traffic from organic search. And it's limited, right? Because where AMP pages show up is somewhat limited depending on the keyword right now. It tends to be more event-driven, news-driven. But if you're a hotel and you want to write an article about that big annual event that happens in your market and you have an AMP page and your competitor doesn't, you better believe you're going to get a bigger slice of that pie because Google is favoring folks that have AMP pages.
And here's what's categorically wrong with their position. Because I the whole time I'm reading it, I'm sitting there going, so wait a sec, you can't put a link on an AMP page that goes to a full-fledged like mobile site?
Right, exactly.
But, so I went and did some searches that I knew AMP pages would come up, and I'm like, yeah there's a link. That's a regular mobile site.
Right.
Their whole hissy fit, and that's what I'm going to call this article, is a hissy fit, is trying to get hotels to completely ignore AMP pages because they've built a really good architecture that they don't want anything in front of.
Right.
But here's the thing. They're Hebs. Hell, we're the travel industry. Let's just do that. We are not important to Google in the way that's going to stop them from moving forward with what's good for them and their consumer, because they're looking at keeping people engaged and innovating. So, yeah, I'm sorry. Like AMP pages, build it into your strategy, test, and then decide based on data. You may even want to use AI to process some of that data, how it fits and how you use it.
Right. Here's one of the problems I think with the website industry in general, right? And there's a lot of folks out there like Hebs and I guess Tambourine, folks like that. They've developed their own proprietary web CMS platform. Okay, so when the cheese moves, which Google is always going to move your cheese, and there's a different way to do stuff, they're not as agile. So if you build your web platform on something that's open source and community contributed to, you're going to be able to adapt a lot faster, because you know what? If you built your website on WordPress, I'm not saying you should, but if you did and you wanted AMP pages, guess what? There's a plugin for that makes it very, very easy.
Right.
But if you're stuck on a proprietary
and that plugin,
you're screwed.
Well, and I want to address one larger issue.
The best plugin for WordPress is the AMP plugin by Automatic, right? Who's it's built in. It was rough at the beginning, and it was the first.
It still has limitations.
Ones,
it still has some limitations.
Yeah, right. It does, and people were doing it, but it's gotten better, right? Because of the community involvement, and when you can kind of say, I can do this with just a plugin. That's versus a complete re-architecture. That's where the power of open source.
And I want to address one larger issue, and it's something Ed brought up at the beginning, which is there's a way to sell technology that has existed. IBM invented it, Microsoft perfected it back in the 90s, called FUD. Fear, uncertainty, doubt.
Doubt.
Right? Sell fear, sell uncertainty, sell doubt. Now,
and that is exactly
what this article is.
Right.
And I have an enormous problem with fear, uncertainty, and doubt, because it is anti-thinking. It is anti-data. It is anti-measurement. It's a terrible, terrible, terrible way to run a business. for the
you're
industry
far better
generally.
if you're going to use
industry stupider.
Right. If you're going to use a marketing ploy, FUD is nowhere near as good as greed.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Greed is a much better motivator for people.
And I'm going to call out Hebs in this specific case because it actually makes the conversation worse. Stuart, I know you guys build some websites on WordPress. I know you build websites on other things, right? The reality is, Hebs CMS is a great solution for some folks. Tambourine CMS is a great solution for some folks. WordPress is a great solution for some folks. We should be teaching people how to ask the right questions to determine what is the right one for their specific case, not, there's this thing and it doesn't align with our technology, so it's evil and it's wrong and burn it with fire, because you're making the industry stupider. And I think that's a terrible idea. And that's how we enable folks who aren't afraid of technology, who aren't uncertain about technology, who aren't doubtful about technology, like, the OTAs and the alternative accommodations providers, to win. So I will get off my soapbox, but that drives me. I hate FUD, and anybody who's watching, learn to recognize it, because the minute you hear it, you should realize people who are saying it have some other objective, and that's problematic.
Their walled garden is all of a sudden crumbling.
Right.
It's a good walled garden if it's the right choice for your hotel.
Well, and the thing I don't even understand from their perspective is I also think they're looking at this wrong. So great, your CMS that you spent a lot of money building from scratch, for some reason can't support this. Okay. So charge services to build AMP pages that feed into your CMS.
Right.
Like, make money off of it.
Actually, this is it does give indicative of something else we've had a larger discussion on that we've all stood on soapboxes for, and that is service providers provide services that they do, and they talk little else of anything else. We're always going to show you what we do. We're not going to show you what you should do. And this is indicative of industry services in general for all that we have. We have vendors out there that will only speak to their skill sets and won't speak to your needs in prioritization of that. And I'm not saying Hebs is the evil person in this. They're doing what's good for their business. Okay.
Well,
they're out there
and they're saying, look, we provide a good service. I mean, this is not to beat up Hebs.
But
this is to call them out on one specific case.
But when you put an article up that, to your point, is discouraging a better alternative value than what you're willing to provide as a service, and masking it in you shouldn't consider it because you should do what we tell you to do. Don't ask how we do it. We just get it done, is not good long-term strategy for any client to have. And we exist in that micro world as consultants. We're constantly walking and going, wait a minute, you do know there's other stuff than what the guy's selling you, right?
But we have two folks on this show, Ed and Stuart, who sell technology services to people. And I've never once heard Flip2 or anybody at Flip2, and never once heard Fuel or anybody at Fuel say, there's this new thing and it doesn't align with what we make, ergo it must suck.
Yeah.
Period. Yeah. I've never once heard that.
Right. And that is a defining difference. That is a defining difference in working with people that are looking for your interests and what you're doing for business versus those that are doing it for their business. As a primary
by the way, I will just say,
that's because they undermine.
For any hotels or OTAs that notice a competitor or a hotel is on Hebs, you now have an easy target. Just build AMP pages to their keywords, and we'll see.
Oh no,
it's
absolutely.
a sad statement, but it's a true statement.
Hey,
that's awesome.
Absolutely, the little build with or built with Chrome extension is outrageously helpful.
To do equal pay with this, Milestone was the first to do everything AMP. They've converted their entire platform to AMP development. If you want to look at the space of how people in market compete with each other, Milestone, which is also a complete service provider, is out there throwing out AMP front forward.
But
let's see, Jeremiah.
And that's a great example, because Milestone doesn't do meta, right? Where Hebs did a bunch of stuff and built a bunch of stuff that kind of handled things. So they were kind of in early with Google. Hotel price ads are kind of in early, earlier than most digital agencies with TripAdvisor, where Milestone still hasn't done it. So all these guys kind of pick what they're good at and focus. And yeah, one size doesn't fit.
And it's okay to be specialized.
That is okay.
But my God, don't
but
kill.
Don't sell fear.
Right.
Yeah.
Jeremiah made a comment off to the side about
certainty.
improving. Yeah, he made a comment off to the side that it's not about chasing shiny objects; it's about improving your strategy. And it's true. I mean, until AMP was validated by Google's insistence on it, it really was just this is what we're trying to do. And then all of a sudden, we knew the world changed when they said, "Hey guys, from now on, AMP is our lead." Oh, wake up call! If you hadn't thought about it, this is the time to start doing these things.
And Google may change that 18 months from now. Who knows? It may get
changed that 18 days from now.
I'm still waiting for my Google Wave account to come back.
Oh man, I wish that would.
My Google Glass is still sitting on a table in my house, and every time my wife looks at it, she's like, "Ugh."
Yeah.
Are they next to your Snapchat spectacles?
No, I would never buy those after buying the Google Glass. Fool me once.
Hey, they have a new one coming out.
Ed's waiting for the Retina implants. Yeah, those are going to be the ones. That's when he's going to go.
Have a new program that's coming out.
Talk about lock-in.
Called Google Lens, which is going to be product identification with AI.
By the
which
way,
is crazy cool.
If any of you have ever used the underlying tech in that, if you've ever used World Lens, which is where this came from, World Lens is one of my I actually think it's one of the best mobile apps ever developed.
So what is this? I'm completely.
When you're traveling, World Lens, you can literally hold your camera up to a street sign, and in real time, it changes the characters to your language.
Google Translate does that as well, but I've never seen World Lens.
That's cool.
They bought World Lens,
which is an augmented. It's one of the first, really solid augmented
reality. My only problem was
apps.
I never had good data feed at the time. Whenever I did it, it took forever for me to get the feed to work.
TEP Wireless is the best thing that happened to World Lens. TEP Wireless, if you're ever traveling, don't get a SIM for your phone. Order a TEP hotspot, and it'll blow your mind, like how it changes how you travel, because you walk around with a tiny little hotspot in your back pocket, super cheap, unlimited data plan, and it can feed up to 5 devices. And LTE over in Europe and Asia and all that's so fast compared to here that you can walk around, and it made apps like World Lens. You can look at a menu with World Lens, and it you actually they graphically did it right. It actually moves the graphics and puts it out. And so so this new
one I got is Skyroom. That's the one I got.
Yeah. But Google Lens is going to be awesome because you're going to start seeing what I've been talking about. And actually, one of the reasons I've been so bullish on augmented reality is because of World Lens. Mm-hmm. Because it wasn't just a shiny app. It was an app that changed the way I travel. Yeah, I'm not afraid to venture into places that I don't know the language because of that app.
Well, I'm actually going to put up a link in just a second. I've got a slide that is a photo of my hand. I was at the Louvre in Paris.
Whoa. Where's the thing where we cut him off?
Wait, it was a photo of my phone. Let me take that. Try that one. God bless. It was a photo of my phone. I just want to say, for the record, I hate you all. Oh Lord!
Oh, why we have a certain commonality on that. We all written down the gutter for that
one. Okay, Tim. So tell us, where was your hand?
So
it's a photo of
what
my
were you talking about?
phone.
Prescriptive. I'm sorry, hang on. That was prescriptive analytics kicking in automatically, identifying a signal and cutting off the video feed. In real time.
Photo of my phone. This is Google Translate.
I'm sorry. The link you just posted is a picture that says "Make instant gratification real."
No. Oh, I clicked the wrong link. Sorry. Hold on. Go to the next slide.
We should have cut off the video.
Kind of funny, Tim, that you're kind of crapping on us for laughing at your thing, but then you put up a picture that says "Make instant gratification real." And now you're going to show us the slide that comes after it.
Hold on. Hold on.
Just do your share screen if you want to. I mean, just pop up the share.
No. I got it. There we go. God,
Jeremiah, where was your
Jeremiah? I hate my life right at the moment. Okay.
Yeah, so this is just like WorldLens.
Right. This is Google Translate.
How did you not know what WorldLens is? I mean, that's basically WorldLens.
It is.
It's Google Translate. I
do
have
that with Google recipes on the back.
I've never heard of WorldLens. So I'm at the Louvre. I'm holding up my phone to one of the labels underneath a painting at the Louvre, and it's translating it on the fly from French to English, and it's changing the characters on the sign. Now, what's interesting, and the reason I use this picture, is because the translation is not spectacular, right? The translation's just okay because it's such a domain-specific thing. There's a lot of terms around art itself that, they haven't quite built into the database yet. But even at that, it's not bad. And the reason I use the picture is because it shows how good it is. That's something that is a topic most people can't talk about intelligently. It got right enough for, clueless Philistine like me to understand what the hell they were talking about. So it's unbelievable in terms of the technology.
Well,
yeah, so that's
I use it for recipe packs. I do a lot of Indonesian food, and it's all in Indonesian, and I just literally use Google Translate to look at the recipe pack on the back of it, and it translates it for me. I mean,
right. On the fly.
Which is crazy cool. Stuart, since I keep going with it, so
and it's the same as it's also goggles, right? Because Google goggles was the same sort of thing. You could take a picture, or where you were looking at your GPS, figuring out what you were looking at. So Google's just accumulating all those technologies.
Yeah, it was a big focus at I/O this past week. I mean, they talked a lot about vision computing combined with AI and augmented reality and VR. It's huge focus for them, for sure.
They've made leaps because we use multiple AI services from multiple AI providers around imagery. Mm-hmm. And when we first set out testing them all, Google's was behind. Mm-hmm. It has just leaped forward in accuracy. Like it's amazing.
Yeah. Hey, so there's one thing I definitely do not want to miss in our time discussion, and that is something I've learned as the continuing story of third-party invasive tracking. And the other is I was brought to school by a guy that I hired to do some Google Analytics GTM auditing for a couple of my clients. I found out he's one of the 12 people recognized by Google to be an authority since he helped create the GTM shell program. I'm like, how the hell did I come across this dude? Anyway, he was explaining to me how you can actually build online tracking and analytics into offline and bring it back into your analytics online. And it is freaking crazy cool stuff using PII stuff, personal information identification. So I don't know whether that, Stuart, I was going to leave it to you. Do you want to throw out, do you want to talk about DAT? You want to talk about, DAT, literally Facebook DAT, or do you want to talk about something else, or
you guys can pick
Google, whatever you like?
I'm along for the ride. So again, I didn't read any of the articles. I'm completely unprepared.
He was here to talk about Star Wars.
I was. I even have a lightsaber over in the corner of my room. I had props and everything.
And just to be fair, we were hoping to have a co-host that works with the Comic-Cons and so forth. Unfortunately, and this is not something that I don't, not for details, but Holly shared, they had an family emergency, and and he couldn't come because of that, not because of anything else. And he apologized, and I believe that from Holly's description, as soon as he can, he'll come back and join us on the show. But it really was a genuine emergency, and the way she described it and so forth. And our thoughts are for him and his family as well, considering the severity of it.
Absolutely.
So with all
tracking.
that, so tracking. Okay, third-party tracking. So here's a little thing just to look for that this guy showed me, and I'm like, oh, holy shit. And it goes back to our security discussions. So in these third-party tracking systems that are in your booking funnel, they put a jQuery script in your confirmation pages. Well, inherently, jQuery scripts do not identify what they're pulling as data, only that they're triggering what it is they're tracking, asking it to do. It doesn't identify fields of source and anything like that, like you normally do in a tracking request when you put in these pixel codes. And for anybody that's listening over the technology side of it, you insert certain codes at certain stages in your booking funnel so that your analytics can track the success or lack thereof in the process. Well, these put in a script that simply says, fire our script, and we'll take care of the data that it pulls. Well,
yes, that is such a, so as a company that has an integration like that, you know, I can tell you, the only companies we've ever spoken to who even recognize that this is a problem are some of the big brands. And it's one of the reasons we've done well going through compliance with big brands is because, oh my gosh, like you leave yourself open to so many things if you just do an unfettered, I'm going to push everything to you. Right. Instead, it should be built where you only push to it the tokens that you want registered.
Right.
And if so, that way at any point you can also disable that on your side.
You're opening up the whole gate, because here's the thing: where this script code is, it's on the confirmation page. So if you may have good security for yours, how you handle credit
less
cards,
dangerous than like if it's before the confirmation page.
Well, it's everywhere, but it's there.
On the confirmation page. So kind of talk through this. If that's the only touch point you're using for tracking, like if they're giving you the excuse that tracking is hugely important and all of that, the reason why it's okay for it to be on only the confirmation page is because they can't actually then alter your user experience. If they're before the confirmation page, that means they are before the credit card form.
Every step.
Which means they can actually, even if it's not them, let's say they're hacked, whatever.
That's the issue. That's the issue.
They can actually send down and completely change the experience. It's
right, because you're an open tap at that point, and if they get hacked and they have access to the ability to pull credit card information and everything else coming through your system, you may be drum tight on your security and protocol and everything else.
But you're not.
Structurally not.
Right. That's sitting right in the middle of your dialogue.
Yeah.
And all of that can get pulled through. And people are looking at it going, holy crap. I mean, they don't know it's there. They just say, oh, sure, you need to put a code in. Great. No, you got to your point, it can't be through the entire funnel. Somewhere you have to break that chain. It's okay to put it in the confirmation page for acclamation of giving credit, if that be the ultimate, that they can take credit for the success of the conversion. But through the entire funnel, which they do, you're literally letting them have all pieces of information through that entire process.
If you do not have it implemented correctly. Like, let's be fair. Let's not kill these companies. Like,
no.
Even ones that can pull all, you can restrict what they can pull, and you should.
Right.
Stuart?
Yeah. That's why I'm a big fan of Tag Manager. I think whether you're using Google Analytics Tag Manager, Adobe has a really good product too. But it gives your analysts a little more control over what data goes where. Right. And it used to be when we were tagging and implementing tracking pixels things, and developers had to touch it. Obviously, there's risk, human error, all kinds of stuff. But with Tag Manager, you're basically taking any data that's available on the document object model through really well-named CSS classes, and you're saying which of those data points can go to which of these.
What data layers are you pulling exactly?
Right. So the data layer has become really important.
And you can nest these variables in there to really do some very sophisticated things.
Right.
So.
Yep.
So,
right.
I mean, from an
I would encourage everyone to consider moving to Universal Analytics and Tag Manager if they haven't already, for sure.
Yep.
Well, no, this is sitting outside of the GTM shell. They're riding shotgun with the GTM shell.
Well, and so this is the crazy thing. So, like we even found this on some of the brands. The amount of tags firing outside the tag manager, the amount of scripts on a page running outside the tag manager. Well, it's for lots of reasons.
Yeah, it's not stupid. It's sometimes necessary.
No. It's stupid how many there are.
Oh,
if you want to find that, there's a great plugin for Chrome called Ghostery that if you just want to pop it on and you go to websites, you can see 27, 45, 50 active
Oh, 27 is low,
including GTM.
Oh, go to a spammy site, right?
Go to TMZ.
Go to one. Yeah, something like.
Go to Roxy's blog.
I actually teach a class at Rutgers.
Not that bad.
I teach a class at Rutgers about it's called Personalized Digital Experiences, about this kind of thing, and TMZ is a great one. We use Ghostery all the time to show what people collect. Yeah. Can I pull the conversation back for 1 second, because I think it's important we make a distinction here between people who are getting access to data that maybe they shouldn't get access to versus people who are engaging in criminal activity, right? And or violating things like, GDPR in Europe and the like, right? So I think it's important for the audience to make a distinction between, data that you would probably prefer you controlled on behalf of your customers versus somebody who's actually hacking you or doing criminal activity, because those are different realities.
Right.
Unfortunately, the criminal activity, if you have information that's worth stealing, somebody's going to try to steal it. So you want to make sure you have the right security in place, and I'm not qualified to talk about that. You guys are definitely more qualified. Definitely people on this podcast are more qualified to talk about it. But you need to make sure you have the right security in place to protect that data. When we talk about, folks who you're sharing data with, you as a business person should be really clear about who are you sharing the data with, what data are you sharing, and for what purpose, so that you're putting yourself in a position to communicate that to your customers, right? So, I just kind of want to, if we can frame the discussion just a little bit different on that, just so it's clear to the people who are listening where we're going with this, I think would be beneficial. So carry on, but I just kind of wanted to throw in that.
No, that's a great reference point too, because there's a difference between malice and productivity. Right. Tracking is necessary, especially when it's conditional as to what you're paying somebody to do for you.
Right.
And there's a need to share the data to validate that, rather than just the hopeful optimism that you're telling them the truth as to why you're cutting them a check.
Right.
But of not being aware of the better ways of doing it versus the lesser ways of doing it, of breaking the chain or controlling the data that is being pulled to create that validation, are being exploited by some vendorships as to, great, if you're going to open the door and let us plug everything we want in, we're going to plug everything in we want. And whether we use the data or not, we have the availability to choose later on, compared to, you tell us where you need the tracking, we'll put it in and identify the parameters to validate what we're agreeing to, is a different conversation.
Stuart?
Yeah, I think it's important to ask questions when you're working with any vendor in your sharing data, especially how it's being installed, what their policies are they certified? As a vendor, I deal with it a lot with the chains. We just went through a big, lengthy contract negotiation with Wyndham, and they were as hardcore as I've ever seen. But the majority of independents, it's not even a consideration. They don't even think about PII and the legalities of it or the ethics of it. So just asking questions up front, I think, is step one.
You want a good sign of if a vendor is on top of their security and privacy game, ask for their standard security and privacy reviews.
Right.
Like, if they have one pre-built because they, push it a lot, then you at least can look at that. And then you can look at the depth of it, of what they're actually presenting to you, and see, and get an understanding if security is part of their mindset and if privacy is part of their mindset. And, as someone who was a early PCI, martyr, I took easy yield PCI because I just saw it as a huge competitive advantage really early. I'm talking before most of the other systems, and that was painful. But I'll tell you what, even years after doing it, not a single one of our competitors had gone through the level of PCI compliancy that we had. It made our company so much better once we adopted it as a practice internally and externally. And so security mindset is something that's a culture. So that's we look at things, when we look at what we could access, one of the first questions is having this data making us a risk? Right. Can we live without the data because having the data makes us a risk, and is a risk to us? So, you can talk to an organization and get an understanding of how security minded they are.
Well, you said an interesting word a moment ago, and I am going to go back to what I was talking about with the Rutgers stuff. You said the ethics of this, which I think is incredibly important, right? You guys have heard my, pithy spiel of, content is king, customer experience is queen, and data is the crown jewels. And one of the things we talk about is, this is people's lives you're talking about, right? You got to protect the data like it is the crown jewels. You got to protect the data like your business depends upon it. Because if you do harm to your customers because you're not protecting the data that they choose to share with you, you are putting your business at severe risk, fundamentally. So
I mean, I don't think they let
have
the
good ethics
wear the crown jewel, right?
Right, exactly. But if you're going to have, if you're not going to have good ethics, at least have a good brain to say this could kill my business, right? We have duty of care in our industry. When people's identities can get stolen, when their credit cards can get run up, when there can be serious financial implications for our guests and things like that. Think duty of care and say, are we doing the right things to protect our guests' personal information? That's incredibly important. And I think
your partners protecting that information is the trickier part.
That's exactly right. But to Ed's point, and Ed, you're spot on, and Stuart, you're spot on. Are these conversations you're even having with your vendor in the outset, right?
Most don't.
Most don't.
Right.
Like we force it. We talk about privacy and talk about compliance. Actually, because, and you'll hate this, Tim, that's the tiny bit of FUD we use.
No, I think that's fair. But
when we're talking to a customer, we point out to them like, oh, hey, by the way, that campaign you ran, you were in violation of many laws.
Oh, yeah.
And you wouldn't make that mistake with us.
But this is a case where FUD is actually appropriate, not to completely contradict myself from earlier. But this is a case where FUD is. So there's a risk matrix we use a lot of times in consulting engagements where we define risk along two axes, which is likelihood, low, medium, high, how likely is something to occur, and impact to your business, low, medium, high.
Right.
Now, if you are a multi-million-dollar business, which many hotels are, the likelihood that people are going to want to get in the way of your data and get access to that data is pretty high. And if you are a multi-million-dollar business and your customers stop choosing you because you've been hacked and exposed and all this other kind of stuff and hurt other people in real life, the impact to your business is also going to be high. When something is high likelihood of occurring and high impact, you should be scared about that. That should scare the living shit out of you. Because that's a real problem. And so that is a
living shit in you should scare the living shit out of you.
That's right. Tim, high frequency, high severity.
Do you see what Jeremiah's asking? I don't understand Jeremiah's point of what he's asking with you on the.
Yeah, maybe to talk about taking Tim's distinction. Are you talking about the distinction between criminality versus Jeremiah? Are you talking about the distinction between criminality versus folks who are accessing data? We're not quite following your comment in this case. I've seen Ocean's 11. I don't remember a data equals bullets comment.
You have to see both those. Maybe it's the Sinatra, Sammy Davis. I don't know.
I don't know. By the way, I'm sorry. You were saying something.
He's saying yes. So, I mean, I don't have an analogy on this one specifically, other than I think the only analogy I would have is I take it back to duty of care, right? Are you actually looking out for the best interests of your guests? And again, I mean, to kind of come full circle on what we've talked about throughout the show, ultimately, is this helping you provide the right experience to your guest? And one part of that experience is duty of care.
Right.
Yep.
Stuart, do we have you?
But again, I just had one thing: the high frequency, high severity, ones in that matrix. Those are no brainers. Where people really struggle are the lower frequency, high severity, and the kind of high frequency, low severity. That's again that gray area are the things that we'll do that in the next phase. So get pushed off. It's not that bad, and that's where they run into challenges. But again, you can't prevent everything, or you will have you'll be wasting tons of money for stuff that isn't going to be that important. That doesn't happen very often, which is not a good thing to do with your business either. So
but I think in one of these PII and things like that is definitely if it's low likelihood, it's still very high impact. So, I mean,
Right.
things that have high
gotta-
impact, you should have some
High
sort of
severity
plan.
you need to pay attention to. I would completely.
Yeah.
Speaking of the PII stuff, it was amazing what I was learning about it. I love talking to people that as soon as you start talking to them, you realize how dumb you are. This guy just made me feel like, let me just sit down here and listen to everything you have to say, which I have that feeling a lot. I'm just going to let you know that right now. I have a lot of that feeling.
Hey, that's why I come here every week.
That's what I sit back and like, damn, I didn't know
So
anything
Tim
about
can
it.
feel better about himself.
To talk.
Exactly.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Mr. Pot, Mr. Kettle.
Anyway,
Only actual rocket scientist on this show. Yes.
I just want to say that I was unaware of how Google can now identify in Universal Analytics and create a personal identification information for you in your experience that you can track, that if you are connected to, say, a PMS system at a hotel, can be connected to what they do offline in your PMS system on room service, spas, whatever. And then when it comes back to talk to your analytics, all that information can get shared up and then added into the entire funnel discussion as to this person and engagement and everything else. It was just mind-numbing to me.
It assigns a serial number to each profile that carries through. I mean, it's
I just
Apple,
I knew that
Apple
it happened that way.
Yeah. Between Apple and Microsoft and Facebook, same thing. It's their ad ID, the unique ad ID, basically.
Right, and then it's 2 years in the length of duration too. It can be 2 years long that thing floats out there. So even if you use something else and it goes in there, as soon as it confirms that you have a commonality from a previous PII, it then reassesses your PII and then redefines you to your existing one that you had, blah, blah, blah. I'm just like, damn, that's crazy.
Well, but how many people use Google Maps, even on their Android, right? It's great. Boom. Done.
Right.
They got it.
Yeah.
And you've logged in, because all those things, you got to log in to get access to your personal stuff, to have things personalized.
I refuse to log into Google stuff across my devices.
Yeah, but guys, I mean, the flip side is
Ed, between his using his TEP wireless hotspot, his Express VPN thing, not logging in, is completely black ops.
You all know the depth of the scary. Like, you all have been on projects where you have that moment of realization of how there is no privacy.
Yes.
Like, I don't know, man. It changes you.
but I mean, let's be fair about this, right? Think about Axiom. Think about Experian. Think about Epsilon, right? Like, it isn't just the frightful five, right? It isn't just Google and Apple and Microsoft and Facebook. There is no privacy. I hate to say it, but anybody who thinks there's the last guy who had privacy was the Unabomber. Right? Living in a shack in the woods is about the only way you get privacy.
And they still found him.
Well, sure, because his brother turned him in. I mean, realistically, I think I always try to make this stuff. I do. I keep coming back to, what can hoteliers do about this? Right? Fundamentally, what can hoteliers do?
Don't put echoes in your rooms.
They're being tested.
There's a difference, Tim, between making the choice.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Right.
I can't wait. It's going to happen. Someone's going to get sued, and everyone's going to go, oh.
Right.
Yeah, I would take a different approach.
Privacy is a choice.
Do put them in the room, but have someone sign something saying that they waive all privacy rights to it.
Right.
Yeah.
But, I agree. Like, there is no
and
privacy
you better
inside
have
these
it on
walls.
the
risk, but I think it's a utility that can help the guest
And
experience.
actually, you can make the disclaimer really fun. A picture of a 1950s mom pointing at you saying, as long as you're under my roof, you're on my rules. That counts.
See, Ed's been thinking this through a little longer since our last conversation.
I spend a lot of time thinking about this stuff.
Or you take the other approach, and your front desk printer prints double-sided, and you put it in a nice small font in really light type.
It's not holding up anymore. That stuff's not
just like the rental car, the rental car companies do. No.
Yeah.
In that vein, there's the other article that was just in the hopper of understanding dynamic ads for travel. Because if you want to talk about lack of privacy and continuation of knowing what it is that they know about you and how to target it, this article, I'll throw it up for it. But it's some Cody, by the way, for anybody that doesn't know Cody, and I would love to get him on the show because they are some smart people.
Yeah, they are.
Oh yeah.
And they do really good about communicating it. There are other platforms out there that they're doing great work, but they don't communicate what they're doing well enough, like Cody does. Cody really does put it into some really
smart guys.
Yeah, they're here in Dallas. I think I'm going to show up on their doorstep one day, going, "Dudes, really, can you just join the show? Because love to have you talk about all the ways you guys are dancing with this."
They're actually in Fort Worth. So yeah.
I'm sorry. Yes, the distinction is not lost on us locals, but yeah, you're right. It's the Metroplex. Let's just refer to it what everybody else calls it, the Metroplex. But anyway, so this article, which I'll put up to it, is just talking about the advancements of how they're using more and more refinement to it. What it doesn't talk about, I don't think, is the depth of the detail of the data being used to identify these. They're just using generalized funnel discussions. They're not really talking about the invasive filtering capability that it uses once it knows your dates of interest, your location of origin, your location of interest, your preferences historically, blah, blah, blah.
So I'm just going to push back on the word invasive, because invasive is biased, right? I mean, people are. I'm
very FUD.
It's very FUD of you, Lauren, right? The reality is it may be invasive. Are we doing it because we're trying to? Are we doing it because we're trying to create a better experience for the guest? Are we doing it because right?
I'm not talking about the usability of the DAT. I'm talking about the invasiveness of the program that creates the DAT.
Well, that's Facebook, man. If people think Facebook isn't invasive, they haven't been paying attention.
You can't be invasive if you're the host.
You're
right, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You're invasing.
I will stick with the FUD.
I'm going to go back to what I just said. 50s mom. As long as you're under my roof, you're under my rules. Well, what happens on Facebook's architecture is under their roof.
With it. It's FUD. It is invasive because there are some parameters we don't control. We've accepted that they're there.
It's Facebook's architecture.
Right.
I'm not disagreeing with you on that. I do find it that you have to.
It would be invasive if it was Facebook's architecture on Google search results.
Yeah, you want to talk about invasive?
That's invasive.
Right. Actually, real invasive. Uber got in some trouble with Apple.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Uber got in some trouble with Apple because they were tracking people after they'd uninstalled the app.
Yeah. Oh,
I
like the other one. I like the other one. I like where they finally admitted that they were blacking out all the people that were tracking whether Uber was in or not marketing.
Yeah.
Where they wouldn't let the people see the cars because they were the enforcers of whether Uber was in the market or not.
Yeah, you want to talk ethically compromised.
Yeah, that's just over a line when that happens.
Definitely piling on to the bad news for Uber this year.
Uber are no longer the darlings of the industry, man.
Unfortunately, there is a criminal investigation into a lot of these things now because
there should be.
They broke actual laws.
Right.
Right.
And they should be.
Yep. And I'm still going to say
Facebook
they will not be around in 10 years as a real player. Like they will be the only reason people will be talking about Uber in 10 years is talking about this use case of the insanity of Silicon Valley investors during this time period who just threw bad money after bad money after bad money onto a model that was just like hindsight on this is going to be amazing. People are going to be like, how did they not see this coming? Like,
is it the too big to fail mentality at that point? It's got where you can't admit that you're wrong and pull out because you're too much into it. You just got to believe the.
Well, that's like the middle 50% of Uber investors are sitting here going, okay, I'll throw some more money at it. Just go IPO. Go.
Yeah,
IPO.
but then look at Google.
Put it on the sucker. Like,
let it ride.
Look at Google. What was it? Auto, right? Who bought? Who bought Auto? Uber bought Auto, right? So that had basically stolen IP from Google's Waymo thing. I mean, it's all over the place.
I want everyone to read the Waymo uber like highlights of that court case.
Yeah.
Because actually what that points out is just the pure fact that Uber doesn't care.
Right.
Like they weren't even clever in like trying to create an arm's length transaction.
Right.
Like they backdated stock options to the day the guy left Waymo. Who backdates stock options? All you have to do is change his vesting. And like, what?
Yep.
They're not even trying. They're just like middle fingers in the air to everyone.
Right. No, for sure. So bringing this back to Lauren's original point, the Facebook in this case is not doing anything that they aren't disclosing. This is whether or not it's in the fine print is beside the point, but they're saying you want to use the platform. This is one of the costs to you as a consumer of using the platform.
Yep. And hopefully one day they'll have a membership that you can pay for to filter out some of the BS.
Yeah. Yeah, in that sense to it too. But it is still incredibly wicked, useful, cost-effective tool. That
I love Facebook.
I ultimately, if you look at it from the purpose of we're using it for hospitality, the better we can refine and define the person that really wants to hear what we have to say about the product that we have, the better it is for the spender to get in front of that person, the better it is for the recipient in relevance that they were able to be discovered, or that they discovered that product because of that. Ultimately, I look at it from the positive side of it in that sense. The tools and methodologies is my reference to the invasive.
Yep.
The acceptance of accepting the rules and what it means to be blanketed like that to me is an extension of saying, oh, since you said yes, that means yes to anything we want to add into these rules. And that's
No. They repost that they've changed the rules and give you the chance to say yes or no to it.
Given the fact that, what was the last stat? The 66% of the people share an article without reading it completely. They just share it as soon as they see something relevant enough they share. How often do they read the
Facebook Facebook is ethically doing the right thing.
Yes, they are.
They're following the rule.
They're countering on the laziness and the ignorance of people to...
Right.
Apple is too. Google is too. They're all.
Nobody reads us.
No.
Right.
Yeah. Yes means yes. That's it. That's all the paperwork says at that end of it. So, I don't. Jeremiah, you put up a CIA's Facebook project. I didn't open that up. I guess
it's an onion. It's an onion. Yeah, it's an onion.
Okay, so it's in there for people to pop back into, and for that, I think I hit. I know, Tim, that you're kind of in your gap of time limits here and so forth. Was there anything that you wanted to?
No, my I don't have a meeting today until 2:00, so I actually was going to stick around until 1:30. But I will be bouncing off soon.
We are blessed.
Well, I've got one thing that's a
but I have
change
nothing else
in
to say.
Australia.
Oh yeah, you did. You threw an Australian thing.
Before you do that, because I'll probably have to jump off before you're done telling your stories about this, Robert. I do want to say something to our viewers.
Wow.
So I've recently, and this is for you, Stuart, I've recently had the pleasure of starting to work with a lot of Fuels customers. Fuels legit, man. Like, we get kind of the ability to see how good your marketing is when we install. You guys are legit.
I appreciate it, man.
Doing good stuff. Yeah.
I will say, I will reciprocate this, and this isn't pre-planned, but the Flip 2 installations we put, especially in the beach destination markets, are going gangbusters.
They're breaking every standard metric we have. They're exceeding in a amazing way, which means the cohesiveness. So when we see a hotel overperform using the same exact settings of another hotel, it means the cohesiveness of their marketing is really good. Like what we're seeing with this fuel cluster, we'll call it a fuel cluster. It sounds awesome.
That could sound really bad too.
That we've recently deployed. It's the highest level of this that we've seen, where the guest is just so receptive to engagement, which means they were handled incredibly well. Yeah.
We have a philosophy internally in marketing in general where, when we're going to go into something, we're going to think about it from the consumer's perspective, like we talked about a lot, but we're going to make it ubiquitous as well. So if we launch a product like Flip2, or if we're installing a mobile app, we're not just going to stick it on the website and see what happens, right? We're going to believe in the product and we're going to put it everywhere that we touch the consumer. So that's fully integrated from email, from the booking engine, from the website, from their social campaigns, from their offline, print postings to on property. We're going to make sure it's just universal, and we're speaking the same message across all those channels.
I'll give you guys a perfect example. One of the groups, so we use a little bit of psychology to get guests to share before they've even stayed, and we, there's something in it for you. And we tend to like to use food and beverage offers because it doesn't really cost money then, right? Like you're going to get spend to get the spend. So we
literally
have
the carrot as opposed to the stick.
Right. So, we normally recommend something that's pretty low, like, because it doesn't need to be high value. It just needs to make sense. And normally like a food and beverage credit like this group did would get you 23% engagement on this touch point. This group is getting 50%.
That's great.
Share. For
awesome.
A food and beverage credit, that's double the engagement. It's insane.
Wow.
But they're talking about it across all their channels,
Right. It's the cohesiveness. It's not just the touch points. It spread out. And it proves what we've always said, which is if hotels thought through the entire cycle, and we don't see it enough. And we work with lots of hotels of all different types, super high end, budget. Actually, some of you probably saw my LinkedIn post about this hotel whose guest stories surprised me because I looked at their guest stories before learning about their hotel, and the guest stories had me thinking they were a 3.5-star hotel. And when I went and looked, they were a 2.5-star hotel.
Right.
And we talk about how you can really make a difference by just being consistent and selling inspiration, and inspiration can change the value proposition. We're seeing it firsthand with Fuel's clients. And it's to the point where it's worth talking about because it's shocking to us. And it of course makes us look like studs because now all those hotels, we way undersold them on what the platform would do for them. We set expectations down here and they're nowhere, it's a different universe because of the consistency in their marketing.
Right.
Hey, this is a side note. I did get a feature request for Flip 2 today. Actually, I was in a client meeting, and let's say they're a two-star property, and their clientele isn't not the most sophisticated. They are getting so many typo and grammatical errors.
Please tell me you gave them the right answer. Please tell me you gave them the right answer.
Well, so we had a discussion. They're like, am I going to post this stuff? Can I edit this stuff? So we might have to have a conversation about what's on there.
Because it's unauthentic.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. If you want that person as a storyteller telling a story to their friends and family, it has to be in their voice. Their friends and family aren't shocked that this person's grammar or spelling prowess is where it's at because they're constantly in communication with this person.
I get that,
if you want to put it on your site,
beyond that person, though, right? Yeah, that's the problem.
Yeah, but if you want to put it on your site, that's a different thing. But I still will tell you, it's meant to be conversational. The psychology of the presentation of the content is meant to be conversational, and conversations are messy. Marketing is perfect.
This is true.
Okay. To add a little bit to the context of the pleasure of being exposed to both products to some degree, but mainly for more to flip to, there's two components I think that you guys are fundamentally shifting to that is improving the entire, as you say, the string of decisions that guests do. And one is that when it comes to specials, features, or amenities, it's like a hide and seek game. You have saturation of variable packages and so forth that you're making people choose between rather than include. Then you have to find and discover things that you find valuable that somebody else that built the website or whatever didn't find valuable, so it's not easily discoverable. All of that gets solved when you start dealing with your guests, creating engagement stuff. Like when you shared, Ed, your example of, hey, guess what ranking star this is for this hotel based on the feedback of the guests. I guessed very high because all the information and the way it was being displayed was a very positive thing compared to its actual ranking of people that have taken the time and go elsewhere on other platforms. So, but what I did also see in there was things that were intrinsically not in the description of the hotel, that were displayed in the pictures, that were displayed in the events and activities that they were sharing, that I found personally interesting, that you as the developer of the site or marketer would never know to feature. So inherently, you're creating a communication channel of knowledge of things that I can now act on, saying, wow, that place, you know what? They have a big, wide beach. I love big, wide beaches. Your marketing message may never mention about a big, wide beach. It may say a beautiful beach. It may say white beach, whatever, but it doesn't say big, wide beach. I love big, wide beaches. I want to go there because it has a big, wide beach.
Lauren loves them wide beaches.
Them wide beaches.
Them wide beaches be crazy.
Tim's hand again. Are we going back to Tim's hand again? Anyway, the point of it is that between that and the ability to communicate with what you're doing with Fuel and how they engage with it, the simplicity of it, where Steve Jobs has been vilified and he's been sainthooded, I guess, but creating a solution to a complex problem, making it simple, and then that solution process is key element to it. And you've done that with communicating without having to be finite marketing or long string tail click through chain navigation stuff. So yeah, applaud for both on that.
It's really good. We started also having conversations with the clients about exactly what you're saying. So how do we leverage the data that we're now getting from Flip2, which is customer data we've never had before, right? What is it that really mattered to them during their stay? Right. What was that experience that they're going to take with them? And you're right, baking that back into the marketing. That's the thing with
because then you're carrying context.
Yeah,
right.
Real personalization is context.
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
Right. How do you know me is much more impressive than what you know about me.
Right.
And carrying context drives conversion. I mean, and Fuel can see it now. But if you look at our conversion funnels of what we do with very little, because remember, our top of funnel, like our real top of funnel, is actually the amount of guests you have enough information on for us to engage with. And then we turn that like an hourglass. We get conversion, and then the conversion turns into a huge funnel, and then we nurture them down. And if you look at the percentages of like how much audience we bring back as unique visit, how much unique visit conversion we get, and then how much conversion goes to actual booking, like those numbers, they're high. And the reason they're high is we carry context all the way through.
Right.
And we, and then we do an exchange of trust.
You just made a really neat statement. You just, again, we have these nuggets of things. This one I just got, carrying context through. Content is there. Context is the hard relevancy to maintain. And by doing what you just said about making context a string all the way through, I think validates the process.
Well, and this is where, like the handoff between Fuel's, campaigns and environment to the Flip2 campaigns and environment is actually causing Flip2 to do better. Is Fuel, when you look at the campaigns they create for their customers, they are less sledgehammer and more precise instrument. It's actually easier to get someone to do something if you start much earlier than when you're going to ask. And you can see it in Fuel's design and a lot of things. And it's actually something Flip2 practices. Like when we want something big, we start asking like really early to warm you up to it. So that way, when the ask comes, the conversion rate of that ask is really high because you were primed for it.
Yeah, it's helping versus selling.
And that's the thing. Right. That context is so critical. And to tie it back to the earlier discussion, is all of a sudden now if you can start tying it back to AMP pages or whatever it may be, and through all these various channels, you get a huge leg up because the number of hotels who go and develop some little promote and hey, we did the email on it. Well, what happened? Is there a landing page? No, they wind up kind of at the home page of the web. And, all that stuff is just insane. The number of like fumbled handoffs, I think, it's in terms of the handoff, is just crazy. It's like, okay, we did something over here in this silo, and pow, the CMS doesn't fit that piece of information. The CRM thing didn't do that, and just like, oops. And then you go back and look at the analytics and go, gee, I wonder why the conversion sucks. It's like, well, you subverted yourself 6 times. I don't know. Yeah.
Actually, so we talk about the things we learned through this. Lauren, we've become obsessed with negative KPIs since you talked to me about them. Like, my entire team has been like all over negative KPIs. Because you really just put a label to something we've seen, like, hey, yeah, you keep spamming the same list of people over and over again, they become disengaged. But if you only focus on the revenue you got from it, it all looks rosy. But man, negative KPIs, like, it's been a huge focus of ours for like, God, I think it's been weeks since you and I initially talked about it, and it's like a primary topic.
Very cool. Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah,
Wow.
It's still in the middle.
I save all the nice things I say about you guys till I know where no one will watch this.
Watch it anymore. We're past people. You're like,
and
oh,
let's
I
face it, Lauren's too busy to actually edit this to where this is the beginning. So
yeah, exactly.
I mean, normally people already
prove I said any of this.
Yeah, Tim leads in an hour and a half. Our viewership goes right off the roof off of that. It's like, but Tim hung around a little longer, so we got some nuggets out of all that. It is 10 minutes shy of 2 hours. Do we have time to talk about the Australian thing, Robert? You can put it into a little ball.
I'll be quick.
Yeah.
I will be quick, which I know none of you believe.
You want to do it next week?
No. This is real quick.
No, although I will say, Robert, it could be the lead topic for next week because it's actually that good to talk about because it has really massive implications.
Huge implications.
It does have huge. Let's see. It's such a huge. It's a huge topic, but we'll see. I think just in the little thing here.
All right, nugget it out.
So, nugget it out is Flight Centre. The Australian High Court decided that Flight Centre is a competitor to airlines because their pricing is different. So all of a sudden, that fundamental agency relationship where, it's the agent selling your product, the High Court came in and said, they sell a lot of people's product, not just you. Are you sure that's really an agent? And, so it kind of went through and said, hey, here are some problems. Well, now applied to the hotel industry, where the Australian Competition Commission last year decided, hey, this narrow rate parity thing where, yes, we get rid of the horizontal most favored nations type thing, which that's pretty anti-competitive when you're talking about competitors. But because of this decision, they're now looking at going, well, wait a second, Expedia and Priceline could be competitors of those hotels they're selling. So them saying the pricing has to be the same, that's looking pretty anti-competitive. So all of a sudden, this resale price maintenance rate parity, I don't know where it's going to go. It may.
Here's the thing. The rate parity
implications
of this aren't the implications that worry Expedia. Expedia wants rate parity to go away. Why? Because Expedia can perform and they can reward hotels who have to give them a better rate because otherwise the hotel will not be able to service its debt. So what the actual interesting implication here is the Australian High Court officially recognized that this relationship and this type of relationship is competitive.
Right.
Which actually now has some very interesting rules of engagement that will be imposed because of it. And the implications of that are probably things that Expedia and the likes of that are quite worried about because like fair disclosure in in certain parts of, like, they're going to probably have to Chinese firewall parts of their operation to not have anti-competitive practice violations brought against them. So the market managers who interact with the hotels and generally play consultant and provide data under the guise that this is valuable data to make decisions on, may have to end up being firewalled from the part of the organization that, makes tons of money by acting on the fact that relationship exists. Because it's anti-competitive. It's coercion, if you will. Collusion, even.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good point. No, we should make sure
there are huge ramifications. Yeah, we'll just have to see how it. My interest is to see what happens if resale price maintenance of a hotel or the supplier being able to say, here is my recommended price, and that sticks if that gets undermined as well. Right. So that winds up being, this is a problem for the OTAs. We'll see if it winds up being a problem on the other side for the hoteliers, because then when that breaks up, then it's the Wild West.
Yeah. So. We're at that point, I think, that Stuart, you got a podcast coming up today, yeah?
Yeah, we're doing it on the 5 reasons people unsubscribe from your email database. So,
nice.
We started with 5 million. I teased it as 5 million reasons because there are probably a lot more. But we ended up only discussing
Number 1,
5.
abuse of a list. No. Actually, my head's very much in the email world right now. I'm working with unabashedly Travel Click, not as a client, but as their platform. I'm using it, and it is so, now that they sucked up ZDirect, which we all know, how little they've really incorporated functionality and how little they're being used. I've noticed that because I have a couple of accounts I'm working with with it, and it's there. It's like you got this race car, but you're driving it to the grocery store. So it's interesting what you say about email. So I'll definitely be listening to the podcast anyway.
Well, when your organization goes from having to ignore its offering because it's out of date and really bad in its product design to then having to completely switch path and go, oh, we have now one of the best architectures that is purpose-built for this industry. It's going to take a while for the other product teams to go, oh, email can be part of our universe now? Oh, okay, yeah, good.
Yeah. And they have a workflow program in there, too. That's pretty cool.
By the way, Stuart, to Jeremiah's question, can you post a link to the podcast in the notes? That would be great.
Oh, yeah.
Sure. Yeah. It's
and
fueltravel.com/podcast. But
can you end the podcast also mentioning that the number of unsubscribes is a marker of how bad you're doing, but the actual worst part are the subscribers you turn into unengaged audience who just ignore you.
Zombies.
At this point, I would love to make, but we already recorded it this morning.
Can you just quickly grab that audio clip and put it in so it sounds like it works?
My favorite term for that, by the way, so we all get email that we don't want, right? Called spam, right? Yep. However, there's actually a term for email that people don't engage with, that they don't bother, they don't mark it as spam, they don't unsubscribe, but it just kind of comes in and sits there. It's bacon. Because it's really high quality spam.
I always eat bacon. There's never leftover bacon. How dare you speak of bacon?
If you talk to a lot of the email companies, they will talk to you about what bacon is.
Then they are all weird vegan hipsters that eat like tofu bacon.
Just for the record,
most it should be corned beef, but not bacon.
Corned beef. I like it. I could get behind that.
I'm over my t-shirt next week, but just for the record, when I was in Waikiki, I went over and joined on the Spam Jam. It's their festival that they had down in Waikiki for spam. Everything's spam. I had spam sushi. I had spam macadamia. I had spam everything. So I got a t-shirt to prove it even. So Spam Jam. Spam Jam. Hey, so all right, Stuart, so start with you. How can people find you, find Fuel, connect with you? Where they can find you?
Online at fueltravel.com or on Twitter at fueltravel. The podcast is at fueltravel.com/podcast. You can get it on anywhere that you like to listen to podcasts: Stitcher, iTunes, Google Play Store. If you just search for Fuel Hotel Marketing, you'll find us. And you can find me personally on Twitter at Stuart Butler, StuartButler.
Awesome. Mr. Robert?
Robert K. Cole on all your social media channels and rockcheetah.com.
Mr. Tim?
TimPeter.com for just about everything. I am at TCPeter on Twitter because I was a moron and didn't grab my name years ago. I need to do one quick promotional thing, by the way. For anybody in the New York area, I am moderating a panel at the HSMAI New York chapter meeting next Monday.
Nice.
With some really great people. It's on online reputation management. The panel is fantastic. Adele Gutman from Library Collection, DJ Valuri from Lodging Interactive, and Mark. I've completely blanked.
Oh man!
Sorry. I have it all queued up. I'm so sorry, Mark. Mark McCullough from TripAdvisor. So it's going to be a really cool panel. Please do come by.
Hey, I want you to mess them up. I have one thing I want you to throw out there.
Yeah, sure. Hit me.
Which is, why does no one talk about the fact, the real opportunity that exists in reputation management, which is your ability to take care of someone else's reputation who's not taking care of their own? I still don't understand why hotels aren't using listening technology and things like that to see when another hotel drops the ball and do a tasteful, hey, don't judge our city by your one bad thing. Here's a couple free drinks for come in tonight. We'll show you a good time. I think that's the actual valuable opportunity in reputation management.
It's going on the list.
Yep.
I would love to just hear their thoughts on it, because quite honestly, if I was a hotelier, that's what I'd be doing. I'd be managing the reputation of the ones asleep at the wheel.
We actually, in the second edition of the New Rules of Marketing and PR by David Meerman Scott, I'm actually mentioned. The company I was working for at the time is mentioned because we sold a hotel to Scott Monty of Ford when he was stuck at the airport, and his hotel had sold out, had oversold and the like, and he was all pissed off, and we swooped in and actually picked up the sale, doing social listening. So anyway, very true.
All right.
Mr. Ed, how can people find you?
Well, before I tell you that, I'm going to plug a couple things I'm doing then. Well, first of all, you can find me in Miami at the Caribbean Hotel and Travel Association's Chief Conference, where I'll be speaking about storytelling. And I also believe Brian Kent is going to be speaking about data-driven marketing. And that is the first week of June. And then 3 days later, if you couldn't be in Miami, you can go to Clearwater and hear me speak about blurring the lines between DMO and hotels at the Florida Association of DMOs conference. So yeah, some interesting topics. And you can find me on social, Edward St. Ange. And you can find out things I care about by going to flip.to or timpeter.com/gimme fuel. It's GIMMEFUEL.
Hold on, I'm sending a text to the web now. No, I'm kidding.
I am going to go over for those show notes, and the show notes I will be putting the link for registering if you're HSMI member, or even if you're not in the New York market for Tim's, because it is an event on the site itself. I will have to dig up the Caribbean one for yours, Ed. And I know the association one, you have to be an associate member, so it really doesn't help on throwing the link out unless you're an associate member. But the one for the Caribbean, if you have that one, that'd be awesome. I'll throw it into the show notes for it. And of course, Stuart, I'll throw your link in for the podcast always, even though you haven't.
And Lauren, where can people find you?
Oh, in my office with a crappy background, doing spending time. HospitalityDigitalMarketing.com. All the archives to the show are there as well under /live show. And of course, we have all the podcasts and the marketing minutes that we keep doing and all this other fun stuff that's all there. I will point out the fact that HSMI Rock and High Tech, or it's not HSMI's, but High Tech is coming up towards the end of this month in Toronto. I will put the links in for those as well, for those who are attending Rock and so forth. We were going to do live coverage. We are not going to be doing live coverage. And I think most of us have found a consensus we're probably not going to be in attendance.
The only let's not speak for the only member of this panel that will be there, which is our friend Stuart Butler with Fuel Travel.
We'll be doing some live videos from the show floor on our Facebook page. So we can be there. We got a booth that I think it's 1911 is our booth. So if you want to come, I'll sign.
Don't forget to eat at the keg while you're there.
Okay, the keg.
What? What's wrong with the keg, Robert?
I lived in Toronto for 5 years. There are
like $4.
About 10,000 better places in the city of Toronto to eat than the keg.
Yeah, but you have to eat it.
I tell you what, guys, I will A/B test it. So you give me one, Robert. I'll try the keg. A/B
Go to the keg and get their lobster special. It's like
the keg. I'm getting lots of
$4.99 for like a 15-pound lobster.
So I didn't know, Stuart. I apologize. I thought that you weren't good, but thank you that you are going to high tech.
Yeah,
definitely would love to see the live coverages of it because, like I said, we're not going to be covering it live like we did the digital conference. So I think Hospitality Upgrade is doing the interview program this sessions. So any live coverage from you would be much appreciated. We'll definitely feature it into as you're doing it. We'll share out the links for everything as it goes forward too. So
sounds good.
with that, thank you everyone. Thank you for the audience, Jeremiah. Holly, hey, Holly, feel better. She's still, for those that
Holly, feel better.
Please do feel better, Holly.
Yeah, she's been fighting bronchitis, so she didn't want to be too aggravate everybody with the coughing. But as Robert
Holly
put it
just
early in the
commented,
show,
"Don't tell me how to live." Wow, sorry, Holly. I was just saying, feel better. I'll change it. I hope you feel better.
And as Robert pointed earlier in the show, probably it would be better if Holly was on the show coughing by herself, and then what we usually get to chat about with all of our faces on it. But thank you everyone for the time being spent. It was a great show and great content, and we'll see how we're in show number 94 next Friday, 10:30 Central, 11:30 Eastern.
Getting close, yeah.
Yeah, we're getting close. July is the 100th. So anyway, night, Gracie. Bye, everyone.
See you guys.
Bye.